I want to use this song to lead into a time of meditation. And I'll just invite you to let your eyes close. Let's take a deep breath together. And I'll get you singing eventually. Then we'll go into a time of silence. And after the silence, I'll lead you through a guided meditation. Peace has found you all around you. In the darkness, in the light, peace has found you. Come to bless you in the quiet of your soul, in the quiet of your soul, in the quiet of your soul. Would you ooh that with me? Ooh, 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 ooh. Peace has found me. Peace has found me all around me, all around me, in the darkness and the light, in the darkness, in the light. Peace has found me. Peace has found me. Come to bless me. Come to bless me in the quiet of my soul, in the quiet of my soul, in the quiet of my soul, in the quiet of my soul. Ooh. Of our souls, in the quiet 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 of our souls. Peace has found you. Peace has found you from within. The peace that's always been there. Our job is to stop, to pause, to be with that presence of God that always lives in us. Peace has found you because you stopped. But how often do we stop? We remember the scripture that says, "Be still and know that I am God." The first part is be still. And then you know that I am presence, that God presence. Be still and know. And then peace has found you. So remember to pause. Remember to stop and take a breath in your life. Be still and know. And let peace find you. Feel that peace right now because you stopped. And so it is, and so you are at peace. Sailing into nothing, sailing into space, sailing into everything I face. Sailing into my destiny, where my future meets my past, knowing that the soul sailing, sailing into nothing, into nothing, sailing, sailing into space, into space, sailing, sailing into everything I face, into everything I face. Whoa, do that. Whoa, 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 and again. Thanks. All right. It's fun being back here. So I was noticing when Reverend Donna was saying some of you are new since April. Maybe all of us are new since April. That would be probably a good thing. Let's keep renewing. Do I have a title up here? Awake in the adventure, let your understanding fuel your will. I think this is powerful, this sense of how understanding and will are connected. And I actually found myself writing just a couple of lines about that I want to share with you, and I'll see if I probably keep coming back to this. So, I understand deep down that spiritual principles are at work and are working in my life. I understand deep down. I'll say a phrase, we can say it together. I understand deep down that spiritual principles are at work and are working in my life. And that takes some faith, some trust, but it's also, I think, a part of us at the core knows it's true. We know it's true. You know, we talk about divine order. We've been around the block enough times to have seen this work in our lives. And then the way we link that to understanding, and I'll read this once, then we can do it together. I have the will to make choices based on that understanding and to stay committed to those spiritual principles even when life appears challenging. Can you agree with that? I'll read that again, then we can read it together. I have the will to make choices based on that understanding about spiritual principles and to stay committed to those spiritual principles even when life appears challenging. So I guess sometimes it can be tempting to go, well, can I work around it without believing in my spiritual principles? Maybe it's a temptation. So let me read it phrase by phrase. I have the will to make choices based on that understanding and to stay committed to those spiritual principles Even when life appears challenging. I guess that's the temptation. Is there a workaround? No, spiritual principles are your workaround. So, and then lastly, I just wrote, this keeps me awake in the adventure. And let's say that together. This keeps me awake in the adventure. And what I want to talk about is how we stay present in the process of having that understanding and connecting it to our will. So a lot of what I want to share to you today is about how we stay awake in this awareness. I always love opening with a joke, so I have a new one for you. Are you ready? This is about a couple of old codgers. It's Dan and Paul, and they're driving down Main Street in some small town, and they're on their way to lunch. So, Dan's driving, and Paul's sitting in the passenger seat, and Paul is sitting there, and he just kind of, his mind is wandering, and he notices, hey, wait a second, did Dan just run through a red light? Oh my God, well, maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I'll just keep my eyes open. Sure enough, a couple of blocks later, Dan runs through a second red light, and Paul says, oh my God, he's done it again. If he does it a third time, I'm going to have to say something. And sure enough, again, Dan runs through a third red light, and finally Paul says, Paul, I hate to tell you, but you've just run through 3 red lights. And Dan says, I'm driving? So I'm tying that into awake in the adventure. So let's stay awake in our lives. Another thing that really brings me awake, and maybe you've had this happen too, like you hear about a high school friend who passed away or someone you've known in your life, and if you're like me, you kind of go, oh my God, life is precious. I don't want to sleepwalk through my life. Have you had that thought? And often it happens for me if I hear someone passed away, oh my God, let's stay awake in this. And again, it's the awake in the adventure awareness. And I have a friend of mine who passed away a couple of years ago, and she brought me a lot of lessons in that process. Her name was Tana, and I knew her for a third of a century. We raised our kids together as neighbors. She was one of these very bright, talented, sharp, smart, great in art, great on the computer, great in words. She was so smart and bright, and yet she could never quite get her life together. Her life she never quite put the pieces together, never really had a job, was always kind of depending on others. It was just all of her friends, all of us would say, how is this possible? She's so bright. But I think that she was carrying a lot of baggage from her childhood, a lot of emotional baggage, and somehow it got in her way. And later in my relationship with her, we didn't live as close together, but I kept track of her, and at a certain point, she had a cancer diagnosis and worked with it, got it to go into remission. It came back a second time, went into remission again. It came back a third time, and this time the doc said, there's no way around this. I'm sorry, we can't do anything. And I did manage to get by and visit with her about 8 weeks before she passed. And I remember when I walked in the room and sat with her for about an hour, she looked the best she had ever looked. It's like, what is going on here? And I realized that for her, I think she felt like there was always that pressure of expectation. She's so bright, so brilliant. Why haven't you done something? And now that she could see that the game was about to be over, the pressure was off. Like she was able to just let go of all that baggage, just to drop it and kind of clear the way to just be herself. And when I saw that, I was fascinated. She looked the best she'd ever looked, her energy, her just physically, all of it. But to me, it also kind of begged the question, do we have to be on our deathbed before we can let go of our baggage? Do we have to be on our deathbed before we can finally relax and just find that peace that's always been there? That's crazy, isn't it? And so I invite all of us, we don't have to be in our last throes of life to just like, hey, can I somehow just find me beyond the baggage, beyond all this weight that I'm carrying? So I did 8 weeks later. I get choked up sometimes. 8 weeks later, I got the call in the afternoon that she had passed. And so, of course, it was on my thoughts for, the rest of the day, and it became time to go to bed, and Heidi and I were lying there in bed, and heads facing each other on the pillows, and I started, as I was thinking about this whole experience and staying awake and the adventure, I began to see this image in my mind. And it was like this point, and it was really kind of like the bow of the boat kind of cutting through a glassy lake. And to me, that was that part that says, let's stay awake in each moment. So this bow of the boat cutting through the water, that represented this moment as it cuts through time. Do you follow me? It's like an image that kind of symbolically represents staying. If we can just stay focused on where the bow is cutting through the water, that's a way, and a way of representation of staying present in each moment. So I was seeing this image, because I, again, was being reminded, stay awake, stay present, don't sleepwalk through your life, Charlie. And then I started to hear some words, like a few lines of poetry. And Heidi was looking in my eyes, said, what's going on, Charlie? And I said, well, I'm seeing this image, I'm hearing this poetry. And she said, well, do you want to get up and write it down? Yes, I think I will. So I did, and I wrote down the 4 lines I was hearing, another 4 lines came, another 4 lines, and it became this poem about this whole journey and kind of what I've been telling you about Tana's journey. So I want to read you this poem, and first I'll preface this by saying, I know that many of us have been to talent shows and retreats where one person stands up and their talent is, I want to read you a poem that I wrote, and then you realize they have 12 pages stapled together. Well, this is just a few stanzas, so you can relax. Okay. We are the bows of our boats, the leading edge of our venture. There's so much down below that you may never see. And often, people in our lives, they're carrying things, we don't know their whole story. We are, each moment in time, the way we face our future. The one you see in these eyes is not my history. I think that's available in every interaction. We don't have to see someone, if we can just be present with who they are right now in this present moment. Again, it's that invitation to stay awake right here. And if you feel some weight, it's holding me together, a ballast, to be sure, for when I hit rough seas. And, sometimes we need our story. We feel like we need it. We need that weight of our history to kind of navigate our lives. Maybe it feels comfortable. Maybe it feels familiar. But I think we can also let that go. So you feel that weight. But that's not who I am, or barely who I was ever. So catch me if you can in every breath's release. Catch me right here, who I am in this present moment. And then finally, so may you gleam and may you shine and find your place beyond time. Who we are is more than this earthly time-based existence. May you know that sweet line that is you and not you beyond time. We live in the spiritual world, we live in the physical world, and that, we're on both sides of that line. May you know that sweet line that is you and not you beyond time. So there it is. Okay. I understand deep down that spiritual principles are at work and are working in my life. I have the will to make choices based on that understanding and stay committed to those spiritual principles, even when life appears challenging. And one of the ways I feel like that I stay committed is to be available. Do you remember that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey, where he was in some situation where he had to say yes to everything that came? It was a funny movie. And I sometimes ponder, maybe we need to be more like that too, because the universe is constantly inviting you to things. And how often do we say yes? Have you ever been invited to a party and you say, no, I don't want to go, and another time you say, yes, I'll go, and then you get home, I'm so glad I got off the couch and went to that party. Do you know that feeling? Because often it's easy to, well, I'll just stay home. It's simpler. But often when we say yes, a whole new world opens up. We're awake in our adventure instead of just same old, same old. So I had a little experience of this I do a lot of international travel. I just got back from Rome 6 days ago. That's fun to say. I lead, I lead people around Italy a few times a year. So come to Italy with me if you like. There's flyers on the table. That's my infomercial. But anyway, in this particular case, I was flying a nonstop from San Francisco to Tokyo. I was going to Japan for the first time to lead some concerts and workshops for like a week and a half. And I get on the plane, and they put me in on the right side of the plane, starboard side, and up on, it was a 747, the big hump on top. Well, it was a coach seat, but I was up in the hump, which is right behind the cockpit. And we'd been out about 2.5 hours, and I began to think about, I wonder if we're over the Aleutian Islands, because I'd never been out over the Pacific like that. Now, as a kid, I grew up with pretty cool parents. One of the things they did, which I loved, is on our kitchen wall, the little breakfast kitchen nook area, they got a hold of a floor-to-ceiling map of the world. So that was our wallpaper. So they would play games with us at dinner, like, I was one of 4 kids. Who can find Perth, Australia? And so we're all looking, who can find Lisbon, Portugal? And where's it? So I grew up as a kid, just a sense of where everything's laid out. So here I am over the Pacific, knowing the Aleutian Islands come off of Alaska. I'll bet I might be over them now. So all the shades are down because people are trying to sleep. So I go, and there they are, stretching out to the distance. And then to be polite, I go, just to close it again. And a Japan Airlines flight attendant immediately came up on my left and said, "Sir, would you like to see that from the cockpit?" Yes, please. Yes, thank you. So she walked me up like eight rows up, knocked on the door, unlocked it, asked the pilots, and they said, "Come on in." So here I am walking in. This is 1997, so it's a little some things have changed. Plus, it's Japan Airlines, they might have been different. And so I walk in, and the cockpit is pretty large on a 747. So there's the pilot, the co-pilot, and then a third seat behind them in the middle, and it had this sheepskin on it. And they said, "Hey, have a seat." And they're, thank you. And they're raising the visors a little so I can see the Aleutian Islands in both directions. Very cool, like a string of pearls going both ways. And then we chat a little. They say, "So is it your first time coming to Japan?" "Well, yes, it is." "And are you on business or pleasure?" "Well, a little bit of both. It's my first time. I want to see Japan, and I'm doing some concerts and some workshops." And, "Oh, so you're a musician?" "Oh, yes." "What kind of music do you play?" I never know how to answer that question. Tell me, what kind of music do I play? I don't know. It's spiritual, folk pop, I don't know. So I said, "Well, I don't know what to call it, but actually my guitar's outside in the closet. Would you like to hear a song?" "Yeah, bring it in." So now here I am sitting on the sheepskin. I get the guitar strapped on, and I didn't really think. I'd just written a new song 2 weeks before. I just started playing that one. And about 2 lines into the song, I realized, oh my God, this song is exactly about these pilots' life. The words start out, "Sometimes I feel like a bird flying over the ocean." And so I play the whole song, and then the co-pilot, afterward, he turns around, he looks mesmerized, like he's a little glazed in his eyes. And I'm praying this thing's on autopilot, at that point. And he says, "Oh my God, I would love for my wife to hear that song. Are you doing any concerts in Tokyo?" I said, "Yes." And so I got his contact information. I had somebody call him so he and his wife, could come. And at the concert, it's great, you can use translators in foreign countries. So I told the story of all the things that happened on the 747 previous to singing this song. And then the punchline I got to say was, "And there on the back row is my Japan Airlines pilot and his wife." And everyone went, "Woo!" The whole crowd. They loved it. But let me ask you this. So we're talking about awaken the adventure, understanding these life principles and having the will to follow through with them. What if, when that flight attendant came up to me and said, "Oh, would you like to see that from the cockpit?" What if I had taken that stay on the couch mentality? What if I said, no, I don't want to be a bother. I'll just stay here. Thank you." None of that would have happened. Awaken the adventure, not sleeping through the adventure. Be available. Be a yes man. Be a yes woman. When the universe is inviting you into things, maybe say, hey, maybe the universe is asking me for a reason, an invitation into more. I remember hearing that someone asked the Buddha, they said, are you a master? He said, no. Are you a saint? He said, no. Well, what are you? You know what the Buddha said? I am awake. And it's just back to, he's right, the Buddha's riding the bow of the boat as that moment is cutting through the water. Maybe that's, come back to awakeness, come back to presence. The experience of God doesn't happen in the past, doesn't happen in your mind, in the future. It only happens right here on the bow of the boat, cutting through the water. This is the only place life is happening. We know that. I'm not telling you anything new. I'm here to remind you of what you already know. Maybe you'll remember it more because I said it in a different way. But I am awake. Let that be your mantra. Are you a saint? Are you a master? No. I'm awake. There's a great quote from A Course in Miracles. A sense of separation from God is the only lack I need correct. A sense of separation from God is the only lack I need correct. Now, it's not saying separation from God. It's just a sense of it. We kind of wandered off into a sense that we're separate when we cannot be. And the only place that connection with God happens, again, is in this present moment, in awakeness and awareness, not when we kind of wander off into worries and feelings and thoughts. And just come to presence. It doesn't have to be about thoughts at all or feelings or any of it. Just peel all that away. Just be with what is in presence. I have no idea how much time I have. I'm in one of those mornings I could go on. You're going like this. Yeah, I get it. I'll start to wrap up the second half of my talk. I'm going to share one more thing with you, and this is something that I've noticed, and again, it's about being present. So let me ask you this: have you ever been like on a vacation or at a retreat, like you're going to be on this thing for a week? And it's only been one day into it, and you talk to friends, say, "Oh my God, have we only been here one day? It feels like so much has happened." Do you know that feeling? Do you know what I think that is? I think you're awake for more of those moments, so it feels like more happened. It's just that you're awake for them. And other times, if you're on your computer and you look up, it's midnight, like, "Oh my God, how did it get to be midnight?" It's like nothing has happened. That's like the opposite. And I think of that as, imagine there's like two sets of pigeonholes, like old mail rooms with all the mail slots. So if in 24 hours it felt like so much happened, it's like you just filled every one of those slots with some experience where you were awake. You're awake for your life, so many of those moments. And over here, we're just kind of like, wow, is it Friday already? It's like there's almost nothing in the mail slots because you weren't awake for them. It just went by. And you weren't even there. I like to call that the pigeonhole principle. So your job is to stay awake for all those moments, keep the adventure going, and be present in what life is asking you to join into. Yes, I would like to go into the cockpit. Thank you very much. Awake in the adventure. Thank you.
That was fun. I told you would enjoy this. So this is our time when we get to bless our gifts into the community. And so for those of you that are on Zoom or watching at a later time, we so appreciate that you are punching that PayPal button or clicking the Breeze link, or there are many of you that give automatically. And for all of the ways in which you give, we are incredibly grateful. So we say this together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, that this is so.